My first real exposure to Sonic the Hedgehog was Sonic Heroes on the PlayStation 2, the worst way to play Sonic Heroes, though I was able to play the Sonic Mega Collection in my childhood to get to experience Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, meaning that going into these games to record them for this little series, I knew what to expect. Sonic CD was not on the Mega Collection Plus, it was on the Sonic Gems Collection, which I did not own as a child. Therefore recording the footage of this game for this video was actually my first ever exposure to Sonic CD, and also marks the first time I've gone into a game for this channel without necessarily knowing what my thoughts on it were beforehand. I've always heard it was kinda like the other Mega Drive Sonic games, but a little bit weird and with some time travel shenanigans, but I didn't know what I thought about it as I had not played it myself. So having now done so, what did I think about it? Based on the title, you can probably gather that I still think it appeared to its contemporaries, but I think the reasons why are more complex this time around, and the game's differences are certainly interesting things to note. Since Sonic CD was being worked on pretty much concurrently to Sonic 2, it could have been a pretty risky venture for Sega, which makes me think that perhaps we should examine what Sonic CD is, and why it exists in the first place. The Sega Mega Drive was a pretty weird console. For one, you might know it by the name of the Sega Genesis, which is what it was called in American markets. What interests me more, and is certainly more pertinent to Sonic CD, is that the Mega Drive was a modular console. You might be familiar with modern video games and the trend of copious amounts of DLC to expand on your games and provide them longevity throughout the years, allowing them to stay relevant and/or provide new experiences that otherwise weren't included in the game. The Sims 4, for example, released in 2014, but is still receiving brand new expansions to this day. But the PlayStation 4 released a year prior and was ultimately replaced by the PlayStation 5 in 2020, because there is no such thing as DLC for a video game console, just the games on it, right? Well, Sega might disagree, as despite the Mega Drive first releasing in Japan in 1988, 3 years later they released an add-on module that could be attached to the console called the Mega CD, or the Sega CD in America, making the console not only substantially bigger physically, but, as the name implies, allowing it to play CD-ROMs. A CD-ROM, in case you're unaware, was basically the predecessor to DVDs, compact discs. By being put into a CD-compatible device, your CD would transfer the relevant information and, in its most typical use, play music. Since the Mega Drive at its base only accepted big, bulky plastic cartridges to play games on, they were extremely limited in both size but also processing power, causing the games on the console to be limited in scope. This is something that becomes extremely relevant with Sonic 3 in particular, as it had to be split across 2 cartridges, though that is a story for another day. The Mega CD didn't have this issue quite so much because the games ran straight from the much faster and more practical discs, allowing for more enhanced graphics and speeds. The most practical use for this technology ended up being allowing full motion video, such as in the controversial game Night Trap. But there were a handful of games that used the module for enhanced gameplay features that the base Mega Drive wasn't able to capitalize on. For example, Hideo Kojima released a game called Snatcher for this peripheral, and a series known as Luna thrived on the platform as well. But as with most things Sega, the real star of the show was once again Sonic the Hedgehog, with his most unique outing yet in the form of Sonic CD. Heck, it even goes above and beyond by also featuring full motion video to allow for a fully animated opening cutscene separate to the one also included in Sonic Origins. Granted, the original version isn't much of a looker, but it was still impressive for the time. All that said though, the Mega CD didn't really sell all that well, and for a long time Sonic CD was considered a sort of black sheep of the early Sonic titles, being relegated to live on a compilation with Sonic the Fighters instead of the other 2D platformers. So is it really all that different to them, or is it just more of the same good old Sonic fun? As with the other games featured in Sonic Origins, we'll talk about the story using footage of the animated intro to the game featured in this collection, which opens with new character Amy Rose using tarot cards to predict her future. Initially she forecasts a spooky future, but shuffles the deck a bit and showcases the prediction of a knight in shining armour. As this happens, a mysterious location known as Little Planet appears in the sky behind her. According to further lore, this planet appears once every year, and is home to the 7 mystical Time Stones? Okay, so we're not using the Chaos Emeralds this time, but what we are using is our beloved antagonist, Dr. Eggman, who attaches a big chain to Little Planet to keep it grounded, and he launches an invasion of this strange celestial body. Due to the weird timey-wimey shenanigans of Little Planet, he is able to set up his robots in the distant past so that the present and future variations of Little Planet are invaded by advanced robots that are causing havoc throughout. But of course, our intrepid hero Sonic arrives to stop Eggman's scheme and save the day. To do so, Sonic must use temporal gateways strewn about the planet to travel to the past, destroy destroy the robot transporters, changing the future from a bad one to a good one. Along the way he runs into Amy Rose, who is then kidnapped by a new advanced robotic version of Sonic named Metal Sonic. In addition to defeating Eggman, Sonic faces against Metal Sonic in a climactic race and ultimately saves Amy, destroys all of the machines creating robots in the past, and ensures the ongoing safety and security of Little Planet into the distant future. And provided you collected all of the time stones, you get the special message of "You're too cool" to cap it all off with. Which you are, by the way. I just thought you should know that. Now there is a bit of contention to discuss here, as while this game did release after Sonic 2, the official timeline for the series and the order of games as represented in Sonic Origins specifically state that Sonic CD takes place between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. The animated cutscenes don't really differentiate where the game is set, and to be honest, I'm not really sure it matters. It establishes both Amy and Metal as recurring characters to be used later, but beyond that the game's story is actually fairly inconsequential, as Amy won't make another mainline appearance until 1998's Sonic Adventure, and Metal won't make a proper mainline appearance until 2003's Sonic Heroes, though he does also cameo in Sonic Adventure. So regardless of when this game is set, I think that as long as it takes place before those games, it really doesn't much matter. We'll circle back to Amy and Metal a bit later, but let's start with the main star of the show for a Sonic game, at least certainly thus far into the series, and talk a little bit about the gameplay. Sonic 1, and especially Sonic 2, had a focus on going fast. The aim of the game is to achieve a high speed, maintain a high speed, and get through the level in as fast and as satisfying a way as humanly possible. Sonic CD similarly wants to promote going fast, but as it was being worked on in a similar time frame to Sonic 2, you can really see where the differences between the teams started to take shape. Sonic 2 was mostly great because the level design was so freeform and fast-paced, allowing you to, more often than not, maintain a pretty fast speed throughout the majority of the game, with people who are better at it than I no doubt being able to keep fast even longer. Sonic CD's level design is, honestly, a bit of a mess. But unlike the pitfalls Sonic 1 fell into with its weird level gimmicks ruining the pace, the primary gimmick of Sonic CD is where the speed comes into it. By running past one of these gates, Sonic is given the ability to time travel under Back to the Future rules. Go fast and stay fast and you can travel through time. What I described in the story section is also pretty much exactly what the objective of travelling through time is. Each stage has 4 different variants: present, where you start, and then a past, bad future and good future variation. From the present, travel through a past sign to go to the past, and a future sign to go to the future, though I do hope that was self-explanatory enough. When in the bad future, you don't really have anything to do other than go back to the present, but in the past, you're able to search the level in order to find the robot transporter, destroy it, and change the future, making it into a safe version of the level with no enemies to worry about, where you can safely finish the stage. Of course, you can also choose to finish the stage without interacting with this mechanic, but the good ending requires you to either finish every stage in the good future, and or for you to collect all 7 time stones. How do you get the time stones? Well, you finish a stage with 50 rings, just as in Sonic 1, and enter the giant ring. Only the special stages this time are faux 3D little islands that you run around destroying UFOs in order to get the time stones. It's a little funky to control, but it's also really impressive that this was able to run on a console from the 90s. Finish 7 of them and you automatically ensure a good future in every zone, regardless of any time travel shenanigans. The problem is though, both methods don't really allow you to maintain a high speed throughout the entire stage. Time travel requires short bursts of high speed in a level you otherwise have to take very slow and steady to explore every nook and cranny. Time stones, on the other hand, require you to finish the level with 50 rings in hand, ergo requiring you not to get hit too much to maintain a high ring count, and therefore meaning you have to be careful and therefore not go too fast. Again, if you're better at the game than I am, then this won't be a problem, but I do wish the good ending was a bit more tenable for the average schmuck like myself to still enjoy. One strange mechanic that warrants mentioning is a new move in Sonic's arsenal known as the Super Peel Out. This allows you to run on the spot for a bit and then dash forwards at high speeds, though critically you are not in a ball whilst doing so. In the original version of the game, this added a bit of risk and reward, as you could choose to peel out for higher speeds at the cost of being vulnerable, or you could spin dash like in Sonic 2 for a safer but slower method of transport. And as with all the Sonic Origins versions of these games, this decision making framework is thrown out the window by the inclusion of the drop dash to allow for consistent speed ups throughout. None of the gameplay pacing stuff is necessarily a deal breaker to me though, since Sonic CD is blessed with both gorgeous visuals and music to make the stages a delight. In a way, I'm glad to be able to spend a little bit more time in them. Now there are fewer stages than in Sonic 2, only having 7 instead of 11, but I would say that most of them are pretty enjoyable, if not a bit confusingly laid out. Labyrinthine, but not labyrinth. Palm Tree Panic premieres as the primary platforming plane, paralleling previous pioneering pursuits. Collision Chaos continues in its calamitous confines, causing chaotic commencements. Tidal Tempest trepidatiously takes to tepidity, Quartz Quadrant's quaint caves allow for quick questing, and Wacky Workbench's wobbly ground will wallop whimsically and worryingly, while Stardust Speedway's sanctimonious soliloquies showcase stupendousness in style and setup. Metal Madness maniacally miniaturizes multiple times to make it maddening. Each one has an alliterative name for some reason, and all around look great, even if I think the gimmicks of Wacky Workbench and Metallic Madness take away from their potential and aren't necessarily my favourites. Each level is, of course, capped off with a boss battle against Dr. Eggman, and each one is laughably easy. I mean, genuinely, what is this thing, and how did anyone ever think this posed a threat? And then you have this one, which, believe it or not, is the final boss of the entire game. Stardust Speedway once again proves itself to be the best by having the most awesome boss battle in classic Sonic, where you have a fast-paced race against Sonic's brand new rival, Metal Sonic. Move out of the way, weird silver dude from Sonic 2, this is the way to make Sonic fight against an evenly matched opponent. Make it fast, make it fun, and play some funny music in the background. Defeating Metal Sonic has you rescue Amy, who is actually pretty inconsequential to the gameplay outside of being an extra motivation to the player, though the Sonic Origins Plus version of the game allows you to play this and in fact every game on the collection as Amy Rose, who is to this day a staple character and fan favourite of the franchise. So all in all, yes, Sonic CD is the weird cousin of Sonic 2. It's a strange little game that incorporates a time travel gimmick to the franchise that is never revisited again until the worst game in the franchise. But Sonic CD is alright. I do like what it does differently and how it differentiates itself from its peers. 2D Sonic had a rocky start with the first game, greatly improved in the second, and I'm glad that this game got to experiment around a little bit before the excellent third game. So that was Sonic CD. A black sheep to some, perhaps a dark horse to others. What sort of shaded animal do I think it is? Let's call it some sort of shadowed hedgehog. The game is aggressively stylized and visually in your face at all times, with music that just excites me to listen to. There are actually two versions of the soundtrack, a US version and an international version, and both of them are great, but I've opted to play the Japanese soundtrack in the background of this video because I, as a whole, prefer the songs that it has to offer. Stardust Speedway in particular slaps. Sonic CD is a pretty fun game, and if you want something that feels like Sonic but is also a little bit different, then I think it justifies its own existence as the weirdo of the 2D Sonic game lineup. I mean, it's maybe not as weird as Sonic Spinball or Knuckles Chaotix, but as far as Sonic Origins goes at the very least, the game is peculiar, and sometimes I just want a game that's a little unorthodox. Halo 3 ODST was the game I stand by saying is the Halo game I enjoyed the most. And I talked about Hotline Miami for over an hour and a half. So Sonic CD is a weird game. It doesn't quite mesh with the goals of its peers, and it's overshadowed by the games that came before and after. It's better than Sonic 1, but it's inconsistent and gimmicky, and it's just a little bit all over the place, but its place in history is still important in a way, because this is the first time, I think, a Sonic story was allowed to get a little bit strange. And if you need to know anything about Sonic the Hedgehog, well, Strange is his middle name. Not really, his middle name is actually The, but future games do have a tendency to get a little bit unusual in their storylines. And I think that this game, dipping its toes into peculiarity, helps that feel like it's a natural part of this world, while also introducing elements and characters that would exist forevermore, because that is the legacy of Sonic CD.